Hello. How's everybody doing? Good? All right. Well, I would like to take a second to thank all of you for showing up today and just say how much of an honor it is to be a part of this presentation. You've got some really solid speakers here with amazing ideas, and the fact that we all think coffee is interesting enough to make it into that's really exciting to me. So I appreciate it. Thank you. I'm going to start talking about a few things today, and you can get a little bit of it out of the title, Cultural Coffee and the Artistic Barista. But just to start it all off, I want to put a frame of reference. The coffee that we're going to be talking about is not your everyday coffee that maybe you're used to or that you see in a lot of situations. We're going to be talking about specialty coffee. So if we're talking about specialty coffee, then what is this? How is it separated? How is it different? At a very, very basic level, specialty coffee, you can define it by simply the coffee itself. So coffee comes from a tree in a green form, and the quality of that green coffee, how many defects are in the harvest, the size, the grading, all of these things will come into effect once it's roasted. How does it score when you cup it and taste it? This is a very basic level of evaluating whether or not a coffee qualifies as specialty. You can go a step up from that and take a slightly bigger, more holistic approach, and you can identify specialty coffee as a coffee that's unique, that has a very specific profile and a sense of place. So rather than just having a cup of morning sunshine blend coffee, you have a coffee that comes from Kenya, that comes from a specific cooperative in Kenya, that has a flavor profile that's unique to it, that tastes like grapefruit and has a clean finish and all these things. So that next level of specialty coffee is looking at it as though it has a very specific identity that changes from coffee to coffee. Now, the third level that we have here, this is how I see specialty coffee. Myself and a lot of other coffee professionals as well don't just see it as the quality of the bean or whether or not that bean has a specific profile. It's a total view, looking at everything in the chain. We're talking about a call to arms here for people to really care about the coffee itself, its unique flavors, the way that it's sourced, the presentation, the preparation, basically every aspect of the coffee chain being viewed in regards to a quality and sustainability level, as opposed to just focusing on a lot of what you have in major chains where they talk about the caffeine of the coffee or the fat content or the sugars or any of those things. That all obscures the picture of what true specialty coffee means, which is looking at the coffee itself and the whole chain that brings it to us. Now, there's a few different positions in the world of coffee. There's people that grow the coffee, your farmers, your producers, your mill operators. There's the people that sort through all the hundreds of thousands of options that are out there. We call those people green buyers because they buy the green coffee. There's roasters that take that green coffee and transform it into something wonderful that we can all taste and enjoy. And then there's people like me. I'm a barista at heart. My true passion in coffee is in the cafes. It's working with people. It's serving coffee to people like you. So the lens that we're going to be looking at this through today is through the lens of a barista, as opposed to those other positions. So if I'm a barista, then I guess I should try and explain it. I don't know how much I'll need to, though. I mean, Korea has a very, very solid coffee culture, and the role of the barista is definitely a bit further advanced here than you'll find in a lot of places. But I'm gonna talk about it all the same. Historically, the role of the barista, if you go into a cafe, this position was not one that would garner respect. You wouldn't necessarily go home and be like, "Mom, Dad, I'm a barista," and they're all jumping up and down. They'd look at you, they'd scratch their head, they'd talk about the problems they had in raising you. It was not a good thing. This was a temporary position that you did while you went to school, or if you were in a band, or it was a side job that had no real future. part of that is because there's no room for advancement. You get a job as a barista, what comes next? You're a barista for another week, you're a barista for another month. That was about all that you got out of it. And to top it off, anybody could do it. I mean, you could just as easily have a job folding shirts at a local clothing store or washing cars as you could be a barista. There was no very specific skill set. Yeah, maybe you learned a few of the basics of preparation, but it wasn't something that there was an educational track for, or that you could build up something that would be considered credible and worthwhile and would help you move on to other jobs or make you feel even valuable about the position. In a handful of cafes throughout the world, some of them here in Korea, all of that's changing. And it's changing for the better, hopefully. Now, there's a few different reasons for this change. First one here, growing, buying, roasting better coffee. Memories for this sort of thing tend to be short and people forget, but coffee 15 to 20 years ago is not the coffee that you are tasting today. There has been no better time in all of human history for you to be alive and enjoying a fantastic cup of coffee. It's simply better from top to bottom. You could have been a king back in the day, and you would be drinking swill compared to what you can get on the corner right now for less than $1. Now, with this advancement, however, in coffee, if we're growing better coffee and we're processing it better, and we have roasters that are taking that and really dialing in on what a fantastic roast is, then when you have this high quality product, if you're using this same old methodology, these same old batch brewers, these same poorly maintained machines, you're still going to get a bad cup. So having this higher quality product has brought about a need for a higher trained, more skilled person to actually execute on that last step to deliver it to the customer. Coffee goes on a very long chain. I'm just going to run through it real quick for you in case you don't know. So coffee grows inside of a cherry, right? It's actually the seed of a cherry on a tree. That's picked, goes to a mill. That mill, the cherry and the pulp is taken off. This little green bean comes out on the other side. That bean goes to a patio. It's dried in the sun with people moving it around meticulously to make sure it's nice and even. Once that's ready, that coffee ends up going off to a port by an exporter, and then it's shipped overseas to an importer, and then that importer sells that coffee to a roaster, and that roaster does his best to make sure it tastes fantastic, gets it out to a cafe, and that coffee goes into a grinder, and some poor untrained soul messes it up in the last 6 minutes. It's heartbreaking. But that's one of the things we're trying to change, is taking that several month long route and having it result in something fantastic. So another reason, aside from having better ingredients, there's a whole new market. Probably about 20 years ago, if you were to have some ridiculous addiction to lattes or espresso, you would be a standalone. You would be a freak among nature, because this culture didn't exist. There weren't espresso machines on every corner unless you're in Italy or maybe Australia or one of those longer standing traditional countries. This is a relatively new thing, and it's spread like wildfire to the point where you can get espresso anywhere. But just as human nature will typically go, the second you have something everywhere that everyone else has, you kind of want something better. So the quality, like people used to be able to look at Starbucks and be like, oh, this is good coffee. Look what you can get here. It's unique. It's wonderful. And for its time, it certainly was. It was definitely different and an improvement on what we had. But now, it's obvious that we can do better than that. It's obvious that we can buy better coffee and we can prepare it better and all of these things. So it's created this opportunity for people that have that passion to find a market for the product. But to deliver it, again, you need a skilled person behind the counter. And this last one, cultural demand for traceability, quality, and sustainability. It would be difficult for me to speak on this with regards to international preference, but I know that in the U.S. there's been a growing movement, and the seeds of it go back very far, but the real bloom has happened very recently. And this is a society that's been marketed to by massive corporations for most of this century, and being pushed into taking these products that are names and brands and don't necessarily have any ability to be traced back anywhere. You know, for all you know, this chicken that you're eating just came out of a grinder and they're feeding styrofoam balls in the back. You know, there's no history to it. Society, at least in the U.S., you're seeing a movement where people want to know. They want to be able to trace this back. Where was this apple grown? Was it grown organically? Did they use some hybrid strain? Were the workers paid well? What's the traceability? What's the sustainability? And what's the quality? This overall demand for something better, something more significant culturally, has magically just lined up with the emergence of specialty coffee. And you're seeing the two travel along together to the point where those three things will essentially define specialty coffee movement right now. And it's created a lot of fantastic opportunities for coffee bars as well. So these are all the reasons for change. One of the main things that are guiding this change within the community itself is the next thing we're talking about here, and that is barista competitions. Again, like it's so weird giving this talk in Korea because this is one of the most coffee crazy nations I've ever been to. It's fantastic, but I'm going to keep going all the same. So barista competition, what is it? Well, this is it's an opportunity for one that typically doesn't exist in a lot of ways for your average coffee professional. Usually it's a barista, sometimes roasters will get involved, sometimes cuppers or green buyers. It's an opportunity for them to take this crazy desire they have to really learn and grow with coffee and create a presentation. Usually occurs in a 15-minute window where they'll serve 3 rounds of drinks, espresso, a cappuccino, and one of their creation, to a panel of their peers, 4 independent tasting individuals, and they will prepare, serve, and then talk about this. And there's this whole elaborate scoring system that goes with it, and it is its own interesting world. You can find video clips online, and some are more interesting than others. But overall, the whole concept is pretty unique. The competition itself is a mixture of science, art, and a healthy dose of spectacle. When you watch these baristas get involved, the sort of motivation that's implied by competition drives them to this. They'll be very specific in the coffees they select and the ways that they grind them and the amounts that they use and the ratios, and the drinks they prepare will be aesthetically beautiful, wonderfully pleasing, and the whole thing is wrapped up in this big show to the point where there's loud soundtracks and colorful outfits, and it's sometimes it can be hard to take it seriously if you're looking at it from an outside spectator, but when you actually get to sit behind that table as a judge and take it all in from someone that is really delivering a solid message, it's an amazing experience, and it's crafted just for that person. One of the things competitions do is they take this position of the barista, and you have all of these people that are passionate about coffee. They want to learn more. They want to prepare it. They want to do all of these things, and there, in the past, was typically little reward for that aside from a smile and maybe a tip. This provides something better. For any situation, any passion that you have, you don't necessarily need, but it definitely helps to have recognition, to have an accolade, to have something to point to. And in coffee, there's not a lot of that. You can't necessarily work in a shop and do an amazing job and then go out on the street and be like, I did an amazing job today. Yeah, good job. You know, not a lot of people are going to cheer you on. But this created something where they could actually point to it. They'd be like, look at this. I've been recognized. I've done very well. I've represented my company and my country well. And it provides a goal to shoot for, which I think is essential in almost anything when you're asking people to give and grow and develop. Also, simply for the sake of coffee, barista competitions have been fantastic. Once you put two people in a situation where you're like, all right, whoever does this better gets rewarded, you would be impressed at the amazing things they come up with, trying to outdo each other. And this has happened in the competitions to the point where people have gotten so specific that they know the exact gram ratio between the dose that they put in to make the coffee and the weight of the beverage coming out. They know the percentage of extraction. They've developed different techniques for distributing the coffee, and they've even gone so far as to take this several $1,000 grinder and in trying to eke out a little extra performance, they're going at it with a hacksaw and putting in timers and asking more things out of equipment manufacturers. All of this happened because they were trying to push this further, to find an edge, to do better. Prior to barista competitions, there was probably about 50 years since the espresso machine was built in which nothing changed. Nothing at all. You've got iPhones coming out, people are looking at 3D televisions, and they're still using the same grinders and boilers that they've been using since the technology was invented. So the fact that this has pushed people further has been wonderful for coffee overall as well. It's also inspired a new way to look at coffees. Traditionally, espresso is considered something that is the coffee itself that would be a blend of several different beans and a darker roast, and you wanted it to not be too bright or too acidic, and it was just this one thing was espresso. Competitions have thrown that book out the window. Now you have baristas using single origin coffees from specific farms that have crazy profiles. This one, is bright and has a grapefruit acidity and it's very strong, and this other one over here is processed in this very unique way, and they struck up a relationship with a farmer just to get this very individual specific lot. There was never a reason necessarily to do this before, but now with this spotlight, with this opportunity, you see this new look at coffee producing farmers that are rock stars. There's this guy named Camilio Merazalde, who produces amazing coffee. No one ever would have known his name before, but now it's everywhere. It's a thing like that that's been fantastic in how it's caused coffees to become elevated in status. So above all and beyond, it's caused this thing that was a mundane, everyday part of our life to be reborn, re-examined, and challenged in entirely new ways. So a little bit about myself before we get into the questions. Coffee, there's not necessarily an educational route for coffee. There's no school in New York that everyone's fighting to get into. It's you pretty much have to hopefully find a roaster that does a good job or a coffee bar that's doing a good job and latch onto that and try and learn everything you can. I came into this from film. I have a fine arts degree in digital cinema. And I absolutely love the profession, and I fought hard to be involved with it. But while I was in college, a coffee bar opened up. And this was normally a fairly boring occurrence, but this particular one was different. This is back in 2004, I think. And this gentleman was roasting inside of the coffee bar. He was selecting single origin beans. If you ordered a cup of coffee, it was made right then, that very second, specifically for you. Everything about this was a tailored experience that focused on the flavor of the coffee. This stuck with me to the point where 4 years later, while I'm still pushing to learn more and be involved in film, I'm going home at night and not looking at the new blockbuster coming out, but reading about coffee forums and trying to figure out new brew methods and anchoring myself in that world to the point where eventually I threw film out the window and moved halfway across the country to put coffee beans in a small bag, put that bag in a box and that box on a truck, because that was a foot in the door. I did that to work at a company called Intelligentsia, which is internationally renowned for being an amazing coffee company. I worked there for about 4 or 5 years, and along this time, competition itself helped me gain reward, helped me gain recognition and new opportunities, and to learn how to do fantastic things with coffee itself and really celebrate the flavors. Recently, about probably 6 months ago, me and 2 other gentlemen, we quit. We quit Intelligentsia, this fantastic, amazing company. because we felt that we were at that next point where all these fantastic things have been happening, and it was a great company to work for, but there's always a chance to do something better. There's always a chance to follow your heart, to find a new thing. And we did that, and we started a company called Handsome Coffee Roasters. We're based in Los Angeles. And just a few words on this, and we'll get into quick questions. But Handsome Coffee is founded sort of in the idea that I think has really revolutionized coffee itself. And that's asking one question, one very powerful, very simple question. And that question is why? Why does coffee have to be darkly roasted? Why do people need cream and sugar? Why do all these things happen? Well, there's a reason. It's not because you can't taste things or you're just not intelligent enough to really enjoy specialty coffee. It's because the coffee you're drinking, it was made bad. People gave you bad coffee, so it needed sugar. It needed cream. If we're doing our jobs and we're sourcing well and we're buying good stuff, coffee has a naturally wonderful flavor. So asking why to all these mundane activities that happen in everyday life and trying to approach them from a new angle has brought about innovation, not just in coffee, but also in the approach that we as a company are going to take to serving that coffee and creating our cafes and anchoring it. At its heart, our new company was founded in making truly excellent specialty coffee and being nice to people. We took a leap to follow our dreams, and I hope that if all of you feel that urge, someday you do so as well. Thank you.